So there's a new clinical trial for glaucoma nerve damage, and the technology is really cool and the implications are really big. Now, it's a little gross and it's probably going to be misunderstood. It's not stupid to be skeptical, but those of us who want to share science with more people are going to have an uphill battle with this one. Even so, I think it could be the beginning of a new tech tree that could unlock whole new fields of medicine, if we can get past the panic. I'm Dr. Peter Allen. I make videos about science and how science fits into society. You can follow me here or get transcripts and sources at peterallenlab.com. So here's the official FDA approval of a clinical trial where a biotech company, Life Biosciences, has injected a dose of engineered viruses into people's eyeballs. And I'm here to convince you that this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, both for the benefit of those individuals and for the benefit of science. This is the first of its kind therapy and uses a heavily modified adeno-associated virus. This modified AAV is supposed to deposit an engineered DNA payload into eye cells. That engineered payload convinces the cells to partially reset to a more flexible state. Life Biosciences describes it as restoring youthful epigenetic patterns and function without converting all the way to a stem cell. The treatment causes 3 genes to be expressed: OCT4, SOX2, and KLF4. That's 3 of the 4 Yamanaka factors that cause cells to revert to pluripotency. They left out the 4th, c-MYC, for safety because it's associated with cancer. In animal models and in petri dish models, this partially reset state allows cells to regenerate lost tissue right where the cells already live. In other words, animals that had lost nerve function in their eyes regained it and were able to see again. So obviously it's very exciting to think that people who had gone blind from glaucoma might be able to take this treatment and also see again. That's a huge deal. Now, this is just a phase 1 trial to see if it's safe, but if it is proven safe, and it might not be, if it proves to work, and it might not, then it's not just a big deal to the people who get to see again. Even more important than making blind people see, this technique of reverting cells to a more youthful state could be applied to lots of degenerative diseases and lots of different injuries where people are not healing. Plus, it could be applicable to lots of diseases of aging. I can tell you from some experience, I do not heal like I used to. Young people get an injury or they have a surgery and they expect to completely recover, they have to fully heal. An old person might never recover. Think broken bones or spinal cord injury or brain injury, heart muscle injury from a heart attack. Any of those might be approached with this new paradigm of reverting cells to a youthful state. In that state, the regenerative capacity and healing would be restored. That's a really big and exciting possibility. This trial is not as scary as it seems. Now, when I read this study, I see huge potential. It's a first clinical trial of its type. There will be more. This is just the beginning, and it's the beginning of something really exciting. And I read about how they did it, and I wince. It's uncomfortable to think about. When people on the internet hear about this, they're going to freak out. It's disturbing and disgusting to think about eyeball injections, much less an injection of viruses, which seem like the physical embodiment of disease. It brings a visceral, almost moral reaction. So I know people are going to read about this, and then they're going to get into the details, and they're going to pick up that kernel of truth, and they're going to say, this is nefarious, this is mad science, this is villainous. Viruses are the bad guys. Right? It's not stupid to hear about this and be concerned. Press X to doubt, as the kids say. But these scientists are not just saying, oh, let's try sticking viruses in people's eyes. This is a very specific nano-engineered DNA delivery vehicle based on a virus, because viruses are really good at getting DNA into cells. Kind of their main big thing. But there are layers and layers of safeguards. First of all, the virus they're using is the adeno-associated virus, which by itself cannot replicate. It's like a parasite virus that parasitizes other viruses. It only replicates in a cell that has already been infected by the adenovirus. If cells don't have the adenovirus, this virus just delivers its DNA and does nothing. And secondly, they took that adeno-associated virus and they clipped all of its replicative machinery even further. So even if it were to infect a cell that has been co-infected with adenovirus, it couldn't replicate. Third, they're using the eye as their environment of choice. The eye is a protected organ. The fluids are relatively isolated from the circulatory system. So even if something were to go wrong, it's only going to affect eye tissue and not get out and affect the rest of the body. Finally, they've engineered the genes that they're injecting into these cells to be activatable with a drug called doxycycline. So you give the drug to turn on the genes. If something goes wrong, you stop giving the drug, genes turn off. So are all these layers of safety And all of them have been tested exhaustively in cells and animals. And as far as anyone could test, all these mechanisms work the way they're supposed to. They had to go through ethics and review boards to test this in animals, institutional review boards, and the FDA to get this approved for human trials. Lots and lots of checks had to be passed to make sure this was going to be as safe as it possibly could be. And there is reason to be concerned. One of the first patients to be treated with gene therapy using a viral vector, Jesse Gelsinger, tragically died during that clinical trial. In that case, it was an adenovirus and not an adeno-associated virus. That's a big difference. And the technology has come a long way in 27 years. In fact, the whole field took a big step back and proceeded with much more caution. Since then, the safety controls have been a great deal more strict. But still, there are real risks. The doxycycline switch may not work as well as it's supposed to. This may increase cancer risk or push cells to lose their identity and disrupt tissues. But everyone who decided to try this treatment gave informed consent. After Jesse Gelsinger, everyone involved takes informed consent very seriously. Right? And there should be accountability. Scientists absolutely need to have safety checks. The institutional review boards, the ethics boards, the FDA. There need to be people who can act as objective third parties and say, I know you're excited about how all the good that this can do, but you have to meet these requirements first. That's good and appropriate. And it's there. Nobody is skipping these steps. If we let visceral reactions and moral panic get in the way, exciting science won't happen. This may be the beginning of a new technology tree. People talked about how science is slowing down. This kind of advancement is the answer to speeding it back up. The reason I think people are getting the impression that science is slowing down is because the old way of doing things, where we find a target, use chemistry to hit the target, and then destroy a disease or cell or problematic mechanism, it's running out of targets. Let's take an example. Pathogenic viruses have generally been fought with vaccines, but in the last few decades, they've also been a few antiviral small molecules, pills you could take that would help kill viruses in your body. The way that people developed those was that they carefully understood every part of the virus. How does it replicate? How does it get into cells? How does it mutate? And then when they have all that information, they say, what part of this virus is absolutely required for it to function, but can't change very quickly in response to evolutionary pressure? And do we have any chemistry that can hit that part of the virus specifically? I imagine there's like a giant robot in a video game, and you want to destroy it with a missile, but you don't know where to hit it. Well, the first thing you do is get the plans, get as much information as you can. And when you know what parts are vulnerable, then you develop weapons to hit that specific vulnerable spot. If this was a video game, maybe you'd have to advance up a technology tree before you could get those targeted missiles. That's how whole classes of antiviral therapy were developed. And these are big deals. That general approach has borne fruit. From fighting bacteria to viruses to cancer, we've climbed that technology tree. We've come home with the goods. But lost nerves in the retina can't be treated that way. It's a different kind of problem. There's no vulnerable spot to attack on dead nerve cells. We need a very different approach. If you've climbed the technology tree for targeted missiles, it doesn't help you build a bridge. So now we're climbing this other tree. It's going to bear fruit too, but until it does, it's going to feel like things are slowing down. If we don't climb this tech tree, we will not achieve what is possible with regard to human health, regenerative medicine, and longevity. If people say, oh, that's terrible, don't climb that tree, it's scary, viruses are bad, we don't even want to understand them because they're evil, then people are going to die because they won't get the treatments on time. Overall, scientists have some of the highest trust scores globally. 56% of people trust scientists worldwide, according to Ipsos, second only to medical doctors. 76% in the United States, according to Pew. After the pandemic, there was some partisan split. Conservatives lost some confidence in scientists. But despite the blame and attacks on the scientific enterprise in the last few years, science has mostly held on to public trust. Scientific community earns it through strict ethics requirements, rigorous oversight. If we want to make progress, we're going to have to push back against gut-level reactions against gross science. That's not license to skip steps or loosen oversight, and quite the opposite. But there's work that needs to be done, communicating, helping people to understand, because there are still people who argue that gut reactions have intrinsic moral status. The wisdom of repugnance, as they call it. It's just the appeal to disgust. Also, from Wikipedia, that is known informally as the yuck factor. It's the belief that an intuitive or a deep-seated negative response to something, some idea or practice should be interpreted as evidence of the intrinsically harmful or evil character of that thing. That's intuitive. It's easy to sell. Here's the pitch. That thing you instinctively don't like, well, allow me to justify that instinct. Give me your money. Give me power. I will validate your fear and disgust. It's an easy sell, but it's completely ridiculous. It's not wisdom at all. It's the folly of repugnance, and it will only hold us back and empower scammers. You know what's pretty disgusting? An appendectomy. Imagine it from someone's perspective who lacks any medical context. Men in strange dehumanizing clothes cut open someone's belly. They root around inside with sharp steel tools and somebody's innards. They remove bits of that person's guts. Literal blood and guts here. It is disturbing. It's horrifying. It's a routine procedure that prevents a horrible and painful death. The fact that it's gross is not evidence that it's bad. It's not evidence at all. The clinical trial results don't depend on whether we enjoy thinking about the procedure. They depend on outcomes. Do people get sick? Is the treatment tolerated? Does their vision improve? And these are open questions, and that's what we need to test. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I especially appreciate you staying all the way to the end. If you have exciting science and biotechnology that you would like me to cover or try to explain in plain language, please do leave that in the comments, and I will do my best to respond. We'll see you next time.